Hey everybody, happy Friday, happy 4th of July weekend. I hope it's a relatively dry weekend for us, that we can still have fireworks and fun things, barbecues, see family. Many of you know already, I believe, that American history is one of my favorite things to read about and to learn about. And one of my favorite genres is historical fiction. And I love historical fiction because an author can take a real place or a real time period in history and even real people and make it their own and create other characters to relate to those people in that time period. So you could take New York City during the Revolutionary War and even a real person we all know a lot about, like George Washington, and create a story around them. And this is one of my favorite stories that does just that. And it's the story of an unlikely hero named Phoebe the Spy. This book is an older book, a classic, a favorite, by Judith Berry Griffin, and it's published by Penguin Random House, and the illustrations are by Margot Tomes. Phoebe the Spy. I hope you're intrigued. In 1776, the year Phoebe Frances turned 13 years old, her father gave her a very dangerous job. Phoebe was going to be a spy. Phoebe's father, Samuel Frances, owned the Queen's Head Tavern. The Queen's Head was a popular eating and meeting place. George Washington, who was now General George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the American Army, had dinner there when he visited New York. So did John Adams. Many people met there because they knew it was a safe place to talk. In 1776, the war had begun, and there could be trouble if a person were caught talking against the king. But the Patriots knew that Samuel could be trusted, so they held meetings at his tavern and discussed their war plans. And Sam Francis never let on that he knew any of them. One morning in April of 1776, Sam and his daughter Phoebe were sitting side by side in the long dining room of the Queen's Head. There was to be a big dinner that night, and they were getting the room ready, polishing the pewter plates and candlesticks, and laying out fresh candles. Phoebe loved the Queen's Head from its broad front steps all the way up to its bright red tiled roof. But this room, called the Long Room, was the room she loved best, with its neat tables and chairs, its fireplaces, its big windows. From the window seat where she sat, she could see clear to the harbor. The water was dotted with big white-sailed ships, their tall masts pointing at the sky like fingers. "Phoebe," her father began. "Yes, sir," Phoebe answered. Her father did not respond, and Phoebe looked up at him smiling. "Phoebe, I have something important to say to you this day. This is a bad time for our country." Phoebe stopped smiling when she saw he was so serious. "It's hard to find a person you can trust with a secret," he said, "especially a dangerous secret. I'm glad I know I can trust you. Young as you are, you've learned from your father how to listen well and talk little." Something in her father's voice made Phoebe put down the candlestick she was holding. She sat quite still, waiting for him to finish, watching the polishing cloth in his hands go around and around. "I have a great fear in me," he said slowly. "A great fear that our General Washington is in dread danger. It is he who is keeping the colonies together, but there are those who would like to see the colonies separated and ruled much more easily by the king. And if something were to happen to the general, it would be a hard job to find another such as he to pull the colonies together and win the war. Indeed, such a man might not be found at all." There was silence for a time. The sunlight grew stronger now, pushed warm fingers through the windows, glittering against the candlesticks. "New York is full of soldiers," her father continued. "Some are only out for money. To them it makes no difference what side they're on. They even take money from the enemy and do anything they'd ask. Some such scoundrel might be paid to kill the general." Phoebe closed her eyes, seeing her father moving like a shadow among his guests, gracious and smiling, pouring wine and exchanging greetings. It was so easy for him to hear secrets without seeming to listen. What I have heard could cost my life, daughter, and the general's as well. Phoebe, he said quietly, I need your help. Phoebe opened her mouth to speak, but her voice would only whisper. What must I do, Father? She asked. Her father put down his candlestick and took her hand in his. I want you to do a big job, Phoebe, he said gravely. General Washington has let me know that he's arriving in New York with his household in 7 days' time. He's to move to Richmond Hill, and I promised to find him a housekeeper. I want you to live there and be his housekeeper, Phoebe. I know you will be a good one. But your real job will be to watch and to listen, to spy out every bit of information you can. I want you to find out if there's someone planning to kill him and how he plans to do it. Your real job, Phoebe, will be to save General Washington's life. So that's part of the first chapter of Phoebe the Spy. And if you're intrigued and would like to read more or read other books about American history, you can come visit me at the library. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. One last thing I'd like to tell you is that Fraunces Tavern is a real place in New York City, down between Pearl and Broad Streets. And you could go there and have dinner or lunch, dessert. And the bottom floor, the long room, is still a beautiful restaurant. The top floor is a museum dedicated to the Revolution. Now, Phoebe is not a real person, but her dad, Samuel Fraunces, was a real person who really owned the tavern. Historians don't believe that he ever had a daughter, Phoebe, so she's a character created by this author. She just inserted her right into real history, and we have a beautiful story because of it. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, rainy or dry, and happy 4th of July.